Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome back. We're glad you're here this morning. We are in the month of November. I don't know about you, but it sure feels like this year is flying for me. Peter thinks it's getting a little chilly. I'd have to agree. But boys and girls, this is November. This is the week to go vote. So since we are aware that there are several adults who join in on Sunday mornings, which we're thankful for anyone who watches, because God's word doesn't return void. It's not because I'm special or Peter's special, but it's because we're sharing God's word. And our desire is that anyone who listens would know more about Christ. But for those adults who are watching, go vote on Tuesday. You have an opportunity, a privilege. Go out and vote. It's this week. Kind of crazy how fast that has come up. But we're not here to talk about that. We are here to talk about the book of 2 Samuel. And we want to focus on God's word. We just finished up 1 Samuel. We talked about last week how Saul had passed away and the consequences for his sin. Well, in 2 Samuel, we're picking up with David, and David's going to get the news. David's going to find out. Yeah, not by phone back then, but he's going to get, we would think of it like that, get that phone call. He's going to find out that Saul has passed away, and his best friend Jonathan has passed away. And as David gets that information, I'm probably jumping ahead of myself. I should tell you the story and how he gets the information, because it's not by a phone call, boys and girls. They did not have phones back then. Let's just begin. Let's set the stage historically where we're talking. 2 Samuel chapter 1. We'll read verses 1 and 2. Now it came to pass after the death of Saul, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites, and David had abode 2 days in Ziklag, it came even to pass on the third day that, behold, a man came out of the camp from Saul, with his clothes rent and earth upon his head. And so it was, when he came to David, that he fell to the earth and did obeisance. So this man comes up, and the Bible just calls him a man, doesn't even tell us what his name is. As Peter and I were talking about this story just before this, just calls him a man. Well, this man comes out, and he comes to David, and David's like, well, where did you come from? Like, why have you come to see me? And he tells him, I came out of the camp of Israel. So David, of course, he wants to get news. How's the battle going? What's taking place? What's going on? And the man reports back, and he doesn't have a good report to give. He says in verse 4 that people fled, and many have fallen, and many have died, and the people are retreating. And then he says, Saul and Jonathan are dead. Can you imagine David getting that news? Boys and girls, we know that Saul has chased David. We know that Saul has tried to kill David, but we know over and over that David did not take the opportunities he had to kill Saul, even though Saul was after him. We know that David is best friends with Jonathan, and he gets that news. Saul and Jonathan are dead. I can't imagine the emotions that he's experiencing getting that sad news. On the same note, this means he's going to become king. What is that like to receive that news? But David gets the news, and we're kind of listening in. God kind of gives us a window into this conversation between this man and David. Because this man, boys and girls, he didn't come with the idea of helping David. This man came with his own agenda. This man came wanting the credit on him. Boys and girls, we're going to find out his mouth is going to get him into a lot of trouble. And if we're honest, boys and girls, our mouths have gotten us into trouble before. The book of James talks about the fact that our tongues can get us in a fair share of trouble. But this man's going to use his tongue to lie and deceive, and it's going to cost him a lot. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. So that's right, Peter, I have to focus here. So let's look at verse number 6. And the young man that told him said, as I happened by chance upon Mount Gilboa, behold, Saul leaned upon his spear, and lo, the chariots and horsemen followed hard after him. And when he looked behind him, he saw me, and called unto me, and answered, Here am I. Verse number 8, and he said unto me, Who art thou? And I answered him, I am an Amalekite. Verse 9, and he said unto me, Stand, I pray thee, upon me, and slay me, for anguish is come upon me, because my life is yet whole in me. So I stood upon him, and I slew him, because I was sure that he could not live after that he was fallen. And I took the crown that was upon his head, and the bracelet that was on his arm, and have brought them hither unto my Lord. Boys and girls, he says he was following after Saul. He says Saul turned around, looked at him. He says he talked to Saul and that Saul asked him to kill him. Boys and girls, can you remember the last week? Who did Saul ask to kill him? Yeah, the armor bearer, not this guy. We don't know where this guy came from. Saul asked his armor bearer to kill him. So you say, okay, maybe this was the armor bearer. Well, do you remember what the armor bearer did after he saw Saul dead? He killed himself. So boys and girls, Saul's gone, and the guy that Saul asked to kill him is gone. But now this guy shows up and says Saul asked him to kill him. Is he telling the truth? No, because God's word tells us he didn't do that. Okay? But this is what the guy says. Now, boys and girls, Saul was enemies of David for a time. Do you think that David's going to be happy that Saul's gone? I mean, David had opportunities to kill Saul and he didn't. Well, this man's hoping that David will be happy with him. So let's see, is David happy about it or is David not happy about it? Verse 11, then David took hold on his clothes and rent them, and likewise all the men that were with him. And they mourned and wept and fasted until even for Saul and for Jonathan his son, and for the people of the Lord, and for the house of Israel, because they were fallen by the sword. So David gets the news and he mourns, he weeps, he's sad, he's troubled. Okay, so we know how David responded, but now we've got this man there who thought he was going to get a pat on the back for killing Saul. And yeah, thanks, Peter. Thought he was going to get a pat on the back. And what do you think's going to happen to him? If he's telling David he killed Saul, and now David's mourning about it, and David's sad about that. We use the phrase shaking in your boots. I think I'd be shaking in my boots, although I don't think I'd ever be in this man's spot. I'm a runner, not a fighter. I'd be fleeing, not fighting. But verse number 13. And David said unto the young man that told him, whence art thou? And he answered, I am the son of a stranger, an Amalekite. Verse 14. And David said unto him, how wast thou not afraid to stretch forth thine hand to destroy the Lord's anointed? How come you weren't scared to kill God's anointed? Verse 15, and David called one of the young men and said, go near and fall upon him. And he smote him that he died. So that man, David had him killed because he said he had killed Saul. Now we know he didn't, but he said he did. So David had him killed. And one last verse we're going to read. Verse number 16, and David said unto him, thy blood be upon thy head, for thy mouth hath testified against thee, saying, I have slain the Lord's anointed. Boys and girls, this man's mouth got him into a whole lot of trouble. His pride, his desire to be big in front of David, his desire to get rewarded by David, it cost him his life. Was it really worth it? Boys and girls, is any sin really worth it? Now, I'm sure you're not finding yourself in exactly the same position as this man, but how often do we twist a story to make us look better? Or we leave out certain details because we want it to not look so bad that we did that. Boys and girls, oftentimes we use our mouth to testify, or our mouth in a way that we shouldn't. I hope this week, as you go about this week, that what comes out of your mouth will be 100% true, but also that you'll have the wisdom on when to speak, because we know just because we think someone's ugly and that might be true, we don't have to say it, okay? So what comes out of your mouth should always be truth, but you don't always have to tell everything you're thinking. Sometimes, as the Bible tells us in Proverbs, it's wise to keep our mouths shut, as Peter was just showing us. But boys and girls, your speech this week, are you going to twist it? Are you going to make yourself look better? Or are you going to be honest in your speech? I hope this week, as you go about everything you do, that you'll be honest.